That's totally good. I am not hating on the waiting season. I am asking for God for stuff right now in my life that I'm waiting on, but I still feel like we don't have to waste the waiting. And so me and this guy, we talked about it that day, about what we can do in the waiting that wouldn't feel like we're just kind of dragging our feet. So I want to start by reading 2 Chronicles chapter 7. Somebody say, where's that at? Old Testament. Help you out a little bit. So I'm gonna kind of give you a backstory about 2 Chronicles. What we're talking about here is this is Solomon's life. So the end of 1 Chronicles, David has just passed away, and David is the father of Solomon. And so Solomon is now the leader, the king of Israel. And what he's doing is he's building up the temple. So he has thousands and thousands of people who just helped him build up this temple. And many of you know the story. Solomon asked for God to give him wisdom. That's already happened by the time that we're gonna start reading. And he has just built this incredible temple. And now before the temple launches off, he wants to dedicate the temple to God. And so we pick up right after Solomon says this huge prayer to the Lord. He literally is praying over the temple. He's like, God, hear me when I pray for this, because this is what we want our temple to be like. Hear me when I pray for this, because this is the kind of people we want to be like. Hear me when I pray against this, because this is what we're asking for. And so he says this prayer. He literally, in the version I'm reading from, asked God to hear him 11 times. So Solomon is like really wanting an answer here. He's like, hear me, God, when I'm praying for all of these things. And we're gonna pick up right after this amazing prayer, 2 Chronicles 7, verse 1. Says, when Solomon finished praying, fire flashed down from heaven and burnt up the burnt offerings and sacrifices, and the glorious presence of the Lord filled the temple. The priests could not even enter the temple of the Lord because the glorious presence of the Lord filled it. When all the people of Israel saw the fire coming down and the glorious presence of the Lord filling the temple, they fell face down on the ground. They worshiped God and they said, he is good. His faithful love endures forever. We're gonna jump to verse 6. Then the priests took their assigned positions, and so did the Levites who were singing, his faithful love endures forever. They accompanied the singing with the music from the instruments King David made for praising the Lord. Across from the Levites, the priests blew the trumpets while all of Israel stood. Verse 8, for the next 7 days, Solomon and all of Israel celebrated the festivals of the shelters. A large congregation had gathered from as far as probably gonna mess this up, Lebo-Hamath, I don't know, in the north, and the brook of Egypt in the south. On the 8th day, they had a closing ceremony, for they had celebrated the dedicated of the altar for 7 days and the festival of shelters for 7 days. Then at the end of a 2-week celebration, Solomon sent the people home. They were all joyful. They were glad because God had been so good to David and Solomon and the people of Israel. Verse 11 says, so Solomon finished the temple of the Lord as well as the royal palace. He completed everything he had planned in his construction in the temple of the palace. Then verse 12, then one night, the Lord appeared to Solomon and said, I have heard your prayer. So I want us to take note of something kind of interesting in this story with Solomon. Verse 1, we kind of see that the glory of the Lord fills the temple. And then from that point on until verse 11, they have a party, literally 2 weeks long of full-on celebration. They are worshiping, they are dancing, they got the trumpets from David, they are playing, they are full-on celebration because the Lord just filled the temple. They're done with it, they're awesome, they're super excited, they go home, they're joyful, they're glad. But did you notice?